Take it away, Caleb. What did you and I watch this week, or participate in watching live this week? Separate, of course, but we still viewed the same players, if you will, on a stage.
Yeah, this year I've been trying to take in some of the art scene here in Vancouver a little bit more. Back in January, I went to go see Fiddler on the Roof on the stage, and then I guess it was this, or was it last week? Yeah, last week. I went to go see another play on the stage, Anastasia the Musical, based on the supposed hit animated film, although I don't know how much of a hit it was. And you saw the same thing several days later.
Yes, I saw mine on Saturday evening, and well, let's talk about it.
Yeah, so I'll start with, were you a fan of the animated film?
It's been quite a long time since I've gone back to the animated film. I did not do what I usually say I'm going to do, which I never do, which is before I go see an adaptation or a sequel, I will watch the previous entry first, just to get myself familiar with it. Excuse me. I did not do that this time intentionally, because I didn't know whether or not this was based off of Don Bluth's Fox film, animated film. Excuse me.
Yeah, now having seen it, do you feel the tendrils a little more? Because it was, at least for me, I was surprised how close it actually was to that film. They changed some core elements, but a lot of it was very, very similar.
So the basic skeleton is still there, at least with on young adult Anastasia herself. Well, okay, she's supposed to be like 27 in the play, but the same structure is there. Is that this is obviously a big what if of that. The real Anastasia, the real princess of Russia herself, was killed in the October Revolution, or one of the big revolutions that had happened. It's either the February or the October one, and she was killed along with her family. Although it probably happened after her family all died. She probably somehow was moved away and then shot, which is pretty sad. But there, of course, is that okay. So for background, this is based off of an animated film after the real life events that happened, and in the day there was supposed, just like Elvis or I don't know who else now, but of celebrities. I mean, she was a princess at the day. She didn't die. People were like, she didn't die. She survived. She got away, and she's living somewhere in Russia or somewhere in Europe under a different identity, and that's what this play was taking from the movie, the animated movie, which is also there, but kind of takes some, kind of adapts what was in the film, which I kind of like.
Yeah.
Let's talk about it.
Yeah, it's essentially the same plot minus the whole Rasputin kind of supernatural angle. They kind of convert that to more of a kind of the Soviet line kind of angle. Like the main villain is more of a representative of the coming state. So that was an interesting adaptation, I thought.
Yes, no, the ones who overthrew the Tsar, and basically introduced communism into the entire country. That political party was the focus, of course, over one person, because we can't have the whole political party in there. But it was one officer who was shown as the main antagonist, and boy, was I a fan of him.
Yes. And was yours, because I know that there was two people, I believe the one that I saw was the understudy playing Gleb.
Okay.
Was the guy playing him on your showing a black man, or?
It absolutely was.
Oh, okay, then yeah, you saw I saw the understudy, you saw the real guy.
Yeah, the main actor in there.
Yeah, but even though I didn't see him, whoever is doing the understudy, unfortunately I didn't get, what do they call them? Like a little cast pamphlet.
Oh, yes. Wait, did you have a pamphlet, by the way?
No, they were already sold out by the time we got there.
Okay.
Was it the same for
Yeah,
you?
no, I had to get it. I had to get mine digitally.
Yeah, I looked at it later, but I didn't download it or anything. But whoever was the understudy did an excellent job. That character really stood out. His voice was just really powerful, and I felt like the character himself was one of the more powerful moments of the play.
I will say a worthy successor to all those who wanted Rasputin, the animated Rasputin, excuse me. Different, of course, very very different, but boy, the actor who played him on my night,
Hmm.
very intense, very very intense. Um, Worthy of a Tony. Like he did
Mm.
absolutely, like that is a man who knows his craft and like put everything into it. He was he like it was a it was a little over the top. That's theater. Like that's the
Yeah,
point. Like I have no problem with that.
yeah, it's the same for mine. Yeah, but the character I felt had some of the most dramatic weight, and at least for mine, one of the least cartoony of the performances. Because a number of the other performers, particularly the grandma, I thought I was like, oh, her performance, I could feel as if it was out of an animated film. It felt very cartoony, I thought.
Oh, the grandmother, eh? I thought you were gonna say like Lily and Vlad. I thought you were gonna like point to those two as being a little over the top.
Yeah, those two felt like comic relief in a stagey way,
Oh yeah,
but their performances still felt like theater performances.
of course.
And the old lady's voice, I thought, was really well done. The grandma's voice, I should say, not the old lady.
Yes. Yeah. Well, she is a the actor is elderly, but yes,
Yeah,
she still does an amazing job.
yeah, she did a great job with the songs. I just felt like her actual line deliveries and stuff, especially with the little kid in the beginning, felt very cartoony to me. I was sort of like,
Interesting. Okay. Even though, in a way, animation and theater are actually more closer than they should be.
yeah, I guess they come from a similar root of just really playing up the dramaticness of it.
Oh, the fact that you have these animated characters. I mean, like animation. You have these animated characters who aren't supposed to be. I mean, of course, you can always have realism. You can always like make them. You can have the rotoscoping effect, like we saw last year
Mm,
with Scanner Darkly, which the rotoscoping can make it look a little weird because you're basically rotoscoping what a real person looks like, so it can look weird in that. But again, the idea that animation is caricature, as Brad Bird would say, you have these over the topness theater is all about that, where it's
yeah,
larger than life. Sometimes again depends on the like play, the performance, the atmosphere, and this certainly had a lot of like humor in it. There was comic relief, but there was still all like very much a serious weight to it, especially with like Anastasia herself having some trauma in her nightmares over what happened.
yeah. And the nightmare stuff I thought was really well realized
Oh yeah.
in this version. And I really liked because they kind of lined the set. It was kind of a more limited, kind of cheaply done set in a way, but they had these CGI kind of, I don't know what to call them, kind of like placeholders for backgrounds, and they would change them up all throughout the thing. And I liked whenever she was having those dreams, we'd see the snow coming over it again. I thought that was cool.
Yep. We'll talk about the set maybe a bit later,
Sure.
just because I think that is important to talk about. I have a lot to ask about that, or
Mm.
I want to discuss that stuff. But I will say with like the Duchess herself, I was moved. I was certainly. I think she came across as justified in how she acted and how kind of bitter she was
Hmm.
over like having all these like fakes, these phonies coming in, trying to basically get the money for her. Which I'm gonna say, okay, I don't know if that was a real thing that happened or not. I will show my ignorance of like I don't know if that's a thing or not. If that actually did happen, that's kind of this sounds really nihilistic. Well, I mean not nihilistic, but this sounds really pessimistic. But like that's a really stupid idea because of course there's gonna be people who are gonna come out and claim to be like you're like not dead granddaughter. Like that's kind of just setting you up for tragedy.
Yeah. Well, she was heartbroken, and folks back then maybe just weren't as aware.
Yeah.
Nowadays, they wouldn't do something like that because it'd just be so ripe with scams.
I mean, of course, there's always, the loss. Okay, there's a difference between. Okay, maybe there isn't, but maybe there's a difference between a, lost dog or lost cat posters. Like, if you've seen my dog or cat in the neighborhood, please, like, find him. There's a reward, or just tell me. Versus, may or may not be dead Princess of Russia.
Yeah. Yeah, and to be honest, that's the original movie was never a favorite of mine. I always thought that the story felt just kind of weird, and there was something that always disturbed me about the real story. and that they made into this animated movie, something about it just always struck me as a little off, especially with the Rasputin, like this comedy relief, but also really creepy and unnerving villain. I thought that dynamic was weird. And then the ending, when she decides to embrace the Anya thing, I never really got that either. I was always left kind of perplexed by that movie. But it was the music that brought me back to it, and that's one of the reasons I was excited to see this show. But some of the core stuff with the movie that I never really got is still carried over to this play,
Interesting.
especially that ending. And so I was like, I kind of wish that they would have adapted a little bit more.
Care to elaborate, unless you kind of already have?
Well, I like the changing of the Rasputin thing. Taking that out of there, I think, helped a lot. Added a more serious kind of note and a little bit more of a meaningful story to it.
And showed a different light as well, in that instead of like, okay, Rasputin's a very interesting figure in, like, history.
Yeah.
Yes, he did deal with spiritualism, but, like, okay, obviously reports now are kind of getting muddy and iffy, and there's obviously, like, different stories now, and legends, fairy tales, folklore, urban legends, whatever you want to call it. Cryptids about whether or not he was close to the Tsar and his family or he wasn't, and the fact that he was kind of a not so nice person when it came to all the communes out in Russia. So it's hard, it's difficult to say, but other than that, at least most like factual history now is stating that like he had a good relationship with Anastasia and her siblings, especially helping her younger brother who was a what is it, hemophiliac? No, low blood or his blood couldn't, or his body couldn't produce blood clots.
Oh yeah, I forget what that's called.
Yeah, I forgot too, but that's basically, he was very much a godsend, or at least a help to keeping him alive.
Yeah, my problems with the story. One, I feel like it actually, the story itself, there isn't a lot there, and it's hard to fully carry the runtime. I thought. And so they packed it full of a lot of good songs in both versions. But still, the lack of an interesting story, it just, it leaves a little bit of a gap there of not really being pulled in. And then I still felt the same kind of confusion at the ending. Why did she choose to be Anya? And why did she choose to, like, why couldn't she be both? Why couldn't she be herself and be with whatever that guy's name, I'm forgetting it at the moment.
Dimitri.
Why did she choose to, kind of wander the streets and not accept her, either her role or her inheritance as that role? I never quite got that in either version.
Yeah, okay, so, I mean, we'll talk about at least this one, because it is kind of funny. I was like, when this happened, I was like, when I watched this, I'm like, should we just do an Anastasia at some point? Like,
yeah, I thought that too.
We probably will, like, I know this is live and we're thinking this now, but like, given that it's in our like heads right now, we probably will do this like soon, because like, why not?
Yeah, Don Bluth series could be fun. Pick some of the highlights.
Well, yeah, you got a bone to pick with, well, not bone, but you certainly have stuff to talk about with Secret of Nim.
Yeah, I'd be curious to see it again. I haven't seen it in a long time.
That's
maybe like 12, 15 years.
But like, sorry, yeah, for this film, or for this theater production, excuse me.
Yeah.
we're going to the theater. Let's go. But for this one, yeah, I think I have a similar thing as well. So we kind of have a lie reveal story, at least with Dimitri, where he said it. He's like, him and Vlad are trying to get out of Russia by any means necessary, and they're the groups that are trying to like get a fake, like create a fake Anastasia to get to Paris, and then to get the money from the Empress, or the Duchess, excuse me. Once like the deal is done. So you have that, which can make him a scumbag or what. But of course they're lovable. He's a lovable guy deep down and whatnot. And I think at least in this production and adaptation, I think they did a lot better of a job to show that he's a little more of like a human character. Like he at least has some motivations as well. He was raised in St. Petersburg. Now what that's Stalinburg, but whatever it's called, Leninburg. That's what it is. Yeah, Leninburg. He had a family beforehand, but like they all died. So I think they expanded his role a little more. That doesn't take away from like what he does, but at least they tried to like give him a backstory to all that. And I remember in the film, he's actually a servant or something like that, a servant boy in the film that helps Anastasia escape during the coup, or their version of the coup, excuse me. But in this, he's not that. He's just like a person on the streets, and they meet. Both him and Anastasia meet during a parade.
Yeah.
Which I did like that scene, by the way, when like when she kind of like realizes that she is Anastasia, when he does it. He never told her a certain action that she performed, which was
Hmm.
pretty cool. I did enjoy that part, but I certainly know what you mean, because the thing with we haven't actually, we're kind of not talking about Anastasia herself,
Yeah.
in that I was thinking that when I came out of the film, where I was like, we didn't actually, because here we have, and here's where you probably not, you don't like it. We have a classic amnesia story, which I guess the film technically had as well. We have a classic amnesia story where girl doesn't know who she is and she's trying to find her past. Now, one way they could have gone at it was potentially, again, don't worry, I'm pretty much incorrect on this. I don't know how to write stuff, but like what they could have gone was she creates a new identity. Like in this journey to like act as Anastasia, like to play this like deceased princess, she actually herself becomes like a new character, and what that means, like what, like, because that's one of the main themes of the play, of like, who are you. I don't know if we actually, I mean, okay, maybe she is by the end, like especially when she is confronted by Gleb at gunpoint, she does state like, I'm Anastasia. But do you think we needed more time spent with her about this, or because they kind of deal with like stuff with the romance between her and
Yeah.
Dimitri? But maybe I'm wrong on that. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, you mentioned the amnesia plot and me maybe potentially having a problem with that. And I do think that that may be part of the issue with not really knowing her or understanding her decision at the end. Because we spend so much of the movie with her not knowing who she is and trying to figure it out. And then to get to the end, and once she does kind of figure out, okay, I am Anastasia, it's like then she realizes that maybe that isn't her anymore either. Maybe. I don't exactly get why she chooses to walk away, but so maybe at the end, her message is supposed to be she's leaving to be Anya to find out who Anya is, since she spent so long focused trying to be someone else. But then it is like, yeah, I didn't really get to know Anya. I don't fully feel like I got to know who Anya was and her reconnecting with I got to know who Anastasia was and her trying to reconnect to who that person was, but who she is now during this movie, it does feel like I'm left a little bit cold. Or this play. Movie.
Yeah, the play production.
Yeah. And I think the actress did a good job. I think she had some fairly well done songs. I don't feel like she was one of the strongest actors or singers up there. Maybe on both parts. But she did do a good job, especially when she was singing with other people. I thought her voice complemented in those versions quite well. But on her own, she wasn't quite as strong as maybe they could have gotten. But maybe that's me being just a little too harsh. I don't know.
Fair enough. Well, I think she gave it her all. That's maybe
Yeah.
maybe that's me being a little too forgiving. But I think you're right. I think really, yeah, there's because we get some stuff about her where like, she fought for like I like that line where she was like, I didn't come all the way to St. Petersburg and then, like without defending myself or whatnot. I kind of like that. That was a
Yeah.
cool moment.
That's what I was going to say too. I was like, the only character trait that I knew is that she could take care of herself.
Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, makes sense given like the time, of course. But
Yeah.
but yeah, if she like learned to do. I also thought, okay, maybe this is a statement on modern day stuff or modern day sensibilities. This production, excuse me, was written in 2017, and Lily has a line somewhere in the second act about how people don't like royalty anymore, and I was like,
Hmm.
is that maybe subtly talking like this is like a key to understanding the end, where she's like, and here's what I'm thinking. She's absolute in I am Anastasia, princess of so and so, maybe she also realizes that like other people will keep coming for her. It may not be Gleb, it's something else. Because the only reason Gleb doesn't shoot her is because like his father was one of the guards who shot the Tsar and his family.
Mm.
And thus he has like a there's some grief to that in a way, like I guess his, and how his like father felt afterwards.
Yeah.
And I read somewhere online that somebody thought that like Gleb has a attraction to Anastasia herself, and I'm like, interesting.
Oh,
I didn't pick up on that.
me neither. I thought it was kind of an attraction to the past, like this old kind of glorious regime that maybe he disparages now, but in a way he also kind of, I don't know, holds in some special way. And then when he finally recognizes that you are Anastasia and I'm going to kill you and kind of be my father's son, but then he can't at the same time, and he still has this respect for her. So I thought that was all fairly dramatic, and I thought some of his music, not just his singing, but just the lyrics of his songs kind of resonated well. It's better than some of the other ones that we got.
Yeah, I can see that. I for let's see, yeah, for at least how I read it, I read the ending more as he can't do it because he saw like who Anya was at first. You know, this
Hmm.
street sweeper, and that she was a comrade and whatnot, and so he kind of had respect for her. Just being a pardon me for saying this, but like a poor unfortunate soul.
Yeah.
Like,
No.
she like she's like one of the commoners, so he kind of had like respect for her.
No, yeah, that makes sense. I can see that being why he called her comrade before he left. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I think at least Anastasia's turn from like for the ending, other than like being faithful to the end of the movie itself, other than like being with Dimitri, I thought it was because there were more coming. Like there were like the USSR agents wouldn't stop coming to like murder her, so that's why that's my theory, and potentially like we don't explore anything with her on like, well, what do you think of all this art? Like, what do you like? Because she wants to be in Paris, right? Does she have a? We don't really see any of her like if she's abhorrent or if she's like has an aversion to art or high art because she chooses Dimitri in the end, who's like a common man. So
Yeah.
I'm like, is there like a thing with she chooses the commoner instead of her royalty? I mean, maybe it's like, is this a hero's journey where like she gets what she was destined to be, a princess in the end, and then she like changes and is that like a good character in a way? Like she like decides not to have it. I have no idea.
Hmm. Yeah. No. Yeah, I don't know either. I'm still lost. I'm still lost in that bit. But even though I find the story a little unsatisfying, I do think that there was some really good songs in this. There was a couple that stood out as just being kind of like nothing, like they almost felt like they were just there to fill time.
Yeah.
For example, the one on the train, it was kind of a fun little number there, but it just felt like, like what? Why are we getting this here?
Well, especially because that was the opening to Act Two, correct?
It may have been. I thought maybe it was the end of Act One, but it may have been the beginning of Act Two. I can't remember for sure.
So I did enjoy the end of Act One is them going on the train, and they have before they go on the train. This is apparently a real thing, where if a Russian is about to leave the country, they would like sit at the airport or the train station or wherever, and kind of just sit and have a moment about like and think about like their heritage and being in the country. Now, that may sound a little nationalistic, but like
Yeah.
in this case, I think the good thing they show is that they show a difference, especially since this is released now, by the way, or since given a certain war that's happening. I think they did a good job of separating Russians from USSR.
Yeah, and I was kind of surprised that there was no mention because when I went to go see Fiddler on the Roof, another play musical that takes place in Russia around a similar time, at the end of it, they did come out and say, like, we stand with Ukraine and, the actions of Russia today doesn't reflect, all Russians in the past, but, like, just kind of a comment about, the war. So I was surprised that there wasn't one for this one.
Yes, I also was thinking that too. They didn't do that here for us either. Yeah, I don't, yeah, it is interesting. And then of course there's also the controversy surrounding like the Tsar themselves, like out Nicholas himself, and being kind of not for the people of the time. Again, it's very muddy.
Yeah.
It's kind of it's ugly. I'm not saying the history's muddy or like we don't understand the history. It's just like it's very detailed and kind of like ugly in a way. So, maybe the only reason Anastasia, some people say Anastasia is gets a free pass because like she was murdered in like cold blood.
Damn.
I mean, okay, I don't. What do I think of that? I don't know. I have to educate myself more. I need to kind of not just look at TV tropes and actually do my history on what the common people thought of royalty, and then what Anastasia herself was like. Apparently, she was a troublemaker, which is kind of cool. I'm like, all right, let's go. But sorry, this production. I think the actor who portrayed her, I think, did a fantastic job for me personally. And there was two moments. There was two moments that really stood out for me. That pretty much like brought me to tears, or at least almost brought me to tears. And that's when we get the locket, when we get the little music box.
The first time or later?
When she opens it, and all of a sudden, like the ghosts of the Tsar and his family, and like the background turns to snow. When that all happens, I was almost I was moved. I was almost in tears.
Yeah.
Even just thinking about that, I'm almost starting to water. My eyes are starting to water up a bit. I thought it was just so like because it was one of the memorable songs from the movie, and that was of course Once Upon a December.
Yeah.
Oh boy, when that started playing, like I almost like started crying. I was like,
Yeah.
oh man.
Yeah, and they seed it through the whole thing. It comes up a number of different times, and each time it's powerful.
Yep.
Especially when she sings it, like I mentioned with the grandma.
Yep.
I think that was just fantastic.
And that's the other moment that got me was the reunion, and like after all the bitterness and sourpussness of the Duchess when they actually meet, and they're kind of both in tears, and like she realizes it is Anastasia. That also moved me a lot. I think that was like some of the best acting in the entire play.
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, and I'm curious for your viewing, because I think maybe at the viewing that I was at, this particular performer had a lot of supporters there, and they all went crazy when she showed up the first time and when she showed up at the end for her applause. And that was the ballet dancing sequence.
Swan Lake.
We get this quartet with all the singers all singing together, which I thought was beautifully done. They're all kind of singing their themes and where they're at in that story, kind of just stating it over each other. I thought that was excellent.
Anastasia, Dimitri, the Duchess, and Gleb. Sorry, just for
all the main players, really.
Yeah, all the main players. Yeah, the big players.
Yeah, and then in the middle, because they're kind of split into these two kind of how would you say it, like?
Well, they're
two sides of a theater.
Yeah, they're literally like both in the like the box office seats. They're literally like in the best seats in the house. They're pretty much overlooking the stage, and they're looking down, and it's Swan Lake that's being played, and quite fitting, of course, given the themes of Swan Lake. I thought that was pretty well done. I love the ballet, by the way. The ballerinas who did and the performers who were doing like Swan Lake. I thought that was also really good, well done. For
Absolutely,
the fact that they had it was a little meta where they had to like do a play within a play.
Yeah, I always like that. And yeah, the couple that I was sitting next to they went crazy when she showed up, the main ballerina. And at the end, they were screaming and cheering for us. So I was like, are they friends with her? Like, what's going on?
Probably, yeah. But yeah, the one who played Odette. Yeah, no, I know what you mean.
Yeah, but no, yeah, I thought that whole sequence there was just great. And overall, I think Act 2 was maybe the better section of the play.
I mean, like, Act 1 is traditionally set up, and then Act 2 is payoff. So, like, sure.
Yeah, although in the original movie, I think I enjoyed the first act better. I kind of like the Pygmalion kind of section where they're teaching her how to be Anya. I feel like that plays better in the movie. It didn't play as great here. It just was kind of there, I thought.
I think with Once Upon a December, I was also thinking of that scene in the film. I think, pretty much like the best scene in the entire film. where she goes into the old palace, and then
Oh yeah.
like with the music box she remembers the ballroom, the dance basically, a ball basically, and then Once Upon a December plays, and yeah, that's kind of biased, I guess, but boy,
Yeah.
I certainly enjoyed it.
That stuff's stunning there. Yeah, and part of the reason why I think the second half of the movie, once she kind of is trying to convince the the Duchess in the original one, I feel like a lot of that falls flat for me just because of more of the Rasputin stuff starts to come in,
Yes.
and I just never liked that. But I think the Gleb stuff, yeah, really changes the dynamic in the later half of it.
Again, they actually keep most of the beats from the film, which is nice. Like they go on a train and then they have to get off the train. In this, like USSR police are there, and they're gonna shoot like any people who seem suspicious, and that worked perfectly, I think, in line with the film. Where in the film it's a big set piece that Rasputin is sending like his ghouls or spirits to like destroy the train or like interfere with the train, and so they have to get off there. So I think it was that was, from an adaptation standpoint, it made sense.
Yeah.
But you could probably question like, what's it doing in the play? Like, does it have any? Like, is there any reason for it to be in the play?
Yeah, I feel like there's some social commentary there, at least more than there was with Rasputin. But maybe it's not social commentary that fully blends in. I mean, I guess you could argue that Anya is representing like this bridge between the old establishment with the royals and kind of how the people are now, the kind of living in the gutter element of, what will become the Soviet Union, kind of this. Well, maybe some bias. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I think you're onto that. Where they are trying to, like, it's almost like this is a first draft, or at least maybe a second, maybe not a first draft, excuse me, like a second draft or two, and like they needed to do like a few more attempts before they like got it,
Hmm.
because totally have social commentary in there. I think that's the point. That's kind of
Yeah.
like some plays reap on that, others don't, obviously, and avoid that. But I think this would be a good like play to have some social commentary on that, especially in this time of where Russia is like the enemy, at least to us here in Canada, because what they're try at least the main guy in charge over there is trying to get back land that to make Russia better again. It's like, okay, sure.
Yeah, and it's sad how long is Russia going to remain the enemy? Because even after the Cold War went cold, as it were, I mean, Russia was still always at that element of they could be a potential enemy at any day now. And it's just sad. It's sad that all these years it's just been kind of on this island.
Yeah, it's kind of it's like John Connor asked in T2, isn't Russia our friends or our allies?
Oh, yeah, yeah. Maybe you could say that briefly at the time, but
Yes, no, only in 1991.
yeah, and of course the Russian government, of course we should say, not the Russian people.
Yes, yes, yes. Although there, of course, is a difference between both of them. Remember that. There's those who are pro-government and there's those who are anti-government.
Yeah. But yeah, do we have much more before we round out the show for us today
I
here?
do. The stage.
Oh yes, the stage. Yeah. Yeah. How'd you feel that those kind of CGI walls? Because it always kind of shaped the action. I felt like they were so big, the little the side pieces, and they were there the whole show. They never pulled them apart, and so it always kind of made the stage a little bit narrow, I thought.
So Caleb, is this volume?
I guess you could say it was kind of like the volume. Yeah.
So it would seem, potentially, volume has made its way into theater, and will potentially, if it works, replace stagecraft and stage work.
Hmm.
Oh boy. Oh boy. I can already tell there's probably a division amongst theater heads over this, both in the union and those watching as an audience. Oh boy.
Yeah. And it was a stark difference from seeing Fiddler on the Roof, which had much more traditional stage elements. They would bring in pieces all over the place. It was a very kind of inventive show with how many different settings we got and how many of them were like full rounded kind of settings. This one was much more limited in that way, and I thought that was I was like, okay, at times this CGI thing could really add some depth and add some, like we mentioned about the snow, add some atmosphere. I especially liked there was a place that they were in that had these it was like white and black tiles on the floor. And the way that they blended that with the CGI really did make it seem like the room was extending back quite a bit. I think they did a good job there. But for the most part, I did find it a little bit like, I wish that we were getting a little bit more set work here. This feels a little bit, I don't want to say lazy, but it just doesn't feel expansive.
Yeah, so for the Fiddler on the Roof, props everywhere, correct?
Yep. They even brought down this little house prop that they would have, a little front of a house.
Cool, quaint.
And they could walk around and there'd be a window there. Yeah, lots of stuff.
Yeah, so there were okay. So not everything was volume. I'm not going to say that because obviously there were a lot of things that like there was like a bench that was still around, like that was physical. When like the four players that we mentioned before, when they were watching Swan Lake, they kind of like have a little balcony made for them. Like that's real. Obviously the back. It is interesting if it is one of those. This is technology enhancing theater, and. Yeah, I don't. That's a good question, man. Because instead of like handiwork, craftsmanship, with carpenters and set design, we'll have that. It'll just be transferred over to 3D composition and 3D animation instead.
Yeah, and that, I mean, again, it does have its uses, but overuse could potentially be ruinous. And one of the things that early on I was not exactly sure about how well it translated was the fact that when they had some guards shoot the parents and during the big kind of massacre scene there, all the enemy guards were all CGI guys just on the screen. I don't know how I felt about that. That struck me as a little bit odd early on.
Yeah, I mean, they almost wanted to like create, what is it like? No, have somebody be not human at all, like inhuman. That's what they wanted to create, like these Inhumans. So that they didn't have faces, even though there were people with faces that murdered those people. So like murdered the Tsar and his family. So like it's not like out of the realm. But I know what you mean, and that's the thing of like, okay, with theater itself. Pardon me if I'm going down this road. It's all up to the imagination. Theater itself, you're supposed to like, okay, there's limited, like with theater, there's limited amounts of stuff you can do traditionally. Of course, that's why there's always props. You're not gonna get like these. You're not gonna go like to all these different places that you'll see in a movie. I mean, this is theater for pit's sakes. Theater before then, like you had to just imagine, like, okay, they're in a different place. Suspension of disbelief. With volume. This can now be like, okay, well, you're still on stage. However, we can now enhance the idea of with this rear projection, we can have you be now we can go from like a Capitol building in Lendenberg to Paris. You can now be you can see the Eiffel Tower, or you can be on Alexander's Bridge in Paris itself.
Yeah,
and that's pretty much like. That's a debate for so many purists and those who are more progressive. Like, that's what I mean. Like, this is gonna send shockwaves through the theater because, well, who's to say that we can't soon have like holograms take the place of actors, and it's all just programs.
Yeah, no, that would be weird. That'd be weird.
Yeah, it certainly. Yeah, it does certainly like loses a sense of. I don't know, quaintness, I guess, or personality, or maybe just a different type of personality.
Yeah, and spontaneity too, I feel. Because if it's something that's pre-programmed into a computer, I don't know, that feels a bit different than the kind of the orchestrated illusion of them all putting the props in places, rushing around to make sure everything's set up for the next scene. I think there's something about that has a kind of spontaneity to it.
Again, I've only ever been in. I guess it was professional, but I've only ever been in like one play, ever, and it was in community theater. So I'm not saying like I know everything, but like I only had like one set. Like we never had like room projections. We were in that like that small room basically, and we had
Yeah,
we had to make use out of one stage, which I don't I'm biased because I have no idea how it looked. I hope it worked.
it did. I think so.
I did because I can't watch it because I was in the play.
Yeah. No, I think it worked. Yeah.
Okay, there you go.
And there was a nice intimacy to that little theater, because everything was so close, But if there was one more thing I wanted to mention about the kind of, it's not quite set design, but it's kind of a set accompaniment.
Of course. What is that, sir?
And that was, they used it many times throughout the show, and each time I found it baffling and kind of startling, where they would flash these two, on both sides of the stage, these extremely bright white lights.
Yeah.
They would flash them, and every time I would just kind of jump a little in my seat. I'd be like, whoa, what the fuck? Why'd they just flash that at me? I never really felt like that worked.
Yeah. So one, there was a warning, I believe. I don't know if was there a voiceover for that, or did you have to just look that in your playbook or your playbill?
Oh.
Excuse me.
Yeah, since I didn't have a playbill, I didn't have any warning.
Yeah. Still baffles my mind that there's stuff like this today. I mean, maybe that's cancel culture speaking, but like,
Yeah.
it's an artistic license. It's an artistic decision, excuse me, to do that. Which I know why it was like muzzle flash. That was what they were trying to like get across.
Yeah, or they used it for photographs a little bit later too.
Oh yeah.
I think.
Uh,
Or maybe they just did it on the stage with the photographs.
I don't remember there being too many photographs in the production itself, but maybe I'm misremembering something.
Yeah, we got family photos early on, and then later on with the grandma,
Oh, okay, never mind.
we got some more photos. But yeah, and yeah, I just don't feel like it was whatever they were trying to do with it. It was more distracting than anything, and it was just too bright. If they'd turned it down a little bit, maybe it would have worked better.
Yeah,
But I just found it off-putting.
yeah, I think yeah, what it was supposed to be, because like I said, Anastasia throughout the entire piece is she has PTSD. She has trauma of like the gunshots from when it happened, and so if it's a trigger thing for her with guns, which I understand.
Yeah.
And most of the time the flashes happen during flashbacks, no pun intended, because it showcases the family getting killed again. I don't know. I think that was an artistic decision to like kind of put us in the shoes of the Tsar and his family in their final moments. And I think it's up to people's interpretations of whether it was effective or not. I didn't ask my friend who was there with me, who is blind. I didn't ask him if his opinion, if he felt it was effective or not. I didn't get a chance to, but I'm trying to remember to ask him. But maybe, like, I don't know if it would have any effect on him, but
Yeah.
also with the volume, I forgot that they actually had what was it? They had title cards in there.
Oh yes, I forgot about that. Yeah.
Yeah, where it was like, oh, you don't know what date it is? Well, it's 1917 and then it's 1927.
Yeah.
Just for people's, I guess, no, or yeah, just to inform people. So I guess, I don't know, I guess that's something that helps, but I'm pretty sure they would still find a way to do that, whether the volume was there or not.
Oh, but just to start to wind it down, yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing some more shows. We saw it at the Queen Elizabeth Theater, and I think it's a fairly good theater. The seats aren't great. My back was hurting for days afterwards. But I think both the shows that I saw at it were well worth the money I spent on it. So I'm looking forward to seeing more.
Yes, no, we here at the Novice Leaders are trying to, put more culture into ourselves and
There you go.
not be the unsavory type. Uncultured, of course. But that also means that this is more of a not popular, but this is a little more of the mainstream plays, you would say. Whereas we have to go out of our way to go to other like little art house theaters, or holes in the wall that actually have real plays. The ones that have like only 2 acts, or not 2 acts, but like there's only 2 people in the entire performance.
Yeah, these are musicals.
Yeah. musicals are unfortunately the popular thing amongst and the mainstream thing amongst theater, whereas like real theater is all about the acting, not just singing.
Yeah, and I'll say for when I went to go see Anastasia, at least I'm pretty sure it was sold out. There wasn't an empty seat that I could see.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure my house was also sold out.
Yeah, so it's nice to see that thriving here. But do you have much? Do you have any little lingering thoughts before we close it down?
I would say to all the all the listeners, go out and watch. Like if it's in your area, go watch it. But unfortunately, it's actually at the end of its run. So
Yeah.
yeah. Oops.
Yeah, and I'll
Well, if it comes back around at some point, go out if you get a chance to see it. I would say try and find reasonable seats and or ones that aren't too expensive and yeah. I'm feeling this play, and I would highly recommend it to others to see it. And
yeah.
you know, let us know in our email what you guys thought of the play, and yeah, if we're wrong or just what your thoughts are on it.
Yeah, and I'll just say we both saw it at Isaac saw it on March 11th, and I saw it on March 9th, just in case anyone's happened to be at the same show.
Oh well, yeah, I forget. That's right. I guess local people listen to us. Never mind.
Yeah, you never know.
Yeah. Well, okay. I never really thought of that, but fair enough.
Oh, but yeah, I guess that's all we got for that one, and yeah, thanks for listening.
Yep. Till next time. Peace.